Do you have more questions than answers? Perhaps you're experiencing confusion, wondering if you've been in a relationship with a narcissist. But then you think, no, it can't be because they were the victim. They can't be an abuser. Then this video might be just what you're looking for. I rarely record videos on narcissism, on sociopaths or psychopaths, because I can't diagnose anyone. I can help educate you and I can help you heal from some of this abuse. And that's why I tend to use the word emotional abuser or emotional abuse. Because if you're looking at videos and you're searching and trying to understand what's happened or understand what's happened, then you probably already know that your relationship, either the one that you're in isn't healthy or the one that you've just left wasn't healthy. Hello, welcome to the Divorce Sanctuary. My name's Elizabeth. I'm author of Finding Lily and the A to Z of Emotional Abuse. On this channel, I talk about healing from emotional abuse and divorcing emotionally from the abuser. I want to remind you that love should be unconditional and that healing emotionally is life-changing. I want to help you understand and process what's happening on the inside of you and help you discover the best tools to heal on a deeper level, becoming the best version of yourself, the one you were born to be. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're returning, welcome back and thank you so much. Now, you might have heard the covert narcissist described as a vulnerable narcissist, and this is what I want to talk about in this video. This isn't a diagnostic tool, and I'm not going to say that this video is for entertainment purposes only, because there's nothing about these relationships that's entertaining. If you believe you are being manipulated, then please reach out to someone that can help you break away from this toxicity and that will be able to help you set some really strong boundaries and do the inner work and the healing. And if you stay to the end, I will share with you some ways of helping you with your recovery. I want to start by clarifying some of the terms of overt and covert and grandiose and vulnerable. So grandiose is possibly the narcissistic personality that jumps to mind when you hear the word. I'm here, look at me. The polarity of that term is vulnerable. So the grandiose type, they have this superior manner with an air of arrogance. They're manipulative, but they have a need for validation. And the vulnerable type have low self-esteem, are hypersensitive to criticism, and are empty and have a lot of shame. The terms overt and covert are their behaviours. So overt might outwardly rage, whereas a covert would internalize their feelings. And if you've been confused trying to understand if you have been in a relationship with a narcissist and then you hear about the covert narcissist, you might have thought, wow, now I don't know if they are. Listen on, as they are interchangeable and there are different combinations. So the term vulnerable didn't appear in the DSM-5 until around 2013. So this diagnosis and the information wasn't available to a lot of therapists that have been working in this area. So their concentration was on, or the information was on the grandiose, overlooking the vulnerable. The vulnerable narcissist will blame shift. It wasn't them. They weren't there. It might be that if they had a better childhood, their parents were uninterested, or they were too involved, or their partners aren't doing enough, or they're doing too much for them, or their parents didn't provide a good home, or they provided a too good a home or too much money, or the person they work with got help with a promotion and they got nothing and were overlooked, or they were given a promotion that they didn't want. The people in their lives can never win. It's a bit like the world owes me. Whereas the grandiose type narcissist, when everything is going well, they're heard before you actually see them. But when you question or challenge them, they come a bit neurotic. Might be experiencing a vulnerability, bringing out emotions of shame, betrayal and abandonment. And so the terms overt and covert are how they display the vulnerability. So overt might rage a challenge to his authority or her authority, whereas a covert will internalize what's happened. And it could be that you have an overt grandiose who has the attitude of I'm better than you, or a covert grandiose who daydreams about power, believing that they're better and that they can do no wrong, or an overt vulnerable who blame shifts as everyone is out to get them, or a covert vulnerable who internalizes those same thoughts. And you might have heard the term covert narcissist, and that they are often highly sensitive and may have low self-esteem, and which leads them to seek frequent validation from others. Those with covert narcissism also tend to be highly sensitive to criticism and may be more likely to internalize due to their fragile sense of self. This is actually vulnerable narcissists, and the way they display their vulnerability is by going inwards and internalizing these wounds. And where it can get confusing is that they can oscillate. The grandiose and the vulnerable are both self-centered, and they have a need for admiration. The vulnerable are introverted, more sensitive to stressful situations. They are resentful, distrustful, insecure. They experience a lot of shame and hypersensitive, very defensive. They're socially awkward, shy, angry, and jealous. They're unforgiving, and they are likely to experience depression and anxiety. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride is a term that jumps to mind, but in this case, it's always the victim, never the aggressor. Did you hear about their childhood, about their mother-in-law, about their boss? Did you hear about, just add in what it is? They portray themselves as the victim, but these stories can be decades old. They use it as a crutch. Caroline Myss calls it leading with the wound. Did you hear? And she wasn't talking about vulnerable narcissists, but the wounds we drag around with us. However, this term is perfect to describe them. They can't let go of anything. They're very unforgiving. Their continual negativity wears the people around them down. It's like they walk under this dark cloud. And if you try to be optimistic, you might be subjected to sharp criticism or their vicious words that are meant to hurt you. They trauma dump, telling all of their traumatic experiences in the hope that somebody else will feel bad for them. They hold grudges. They can't forgive. And if you make a mistake, they hold this over you for decades. Those in contact with the vulnerable narcissist will actually feel the hate towards them. The emotions of anger and hatred simmer just below the surface all of the time, and you might experience walking on eggshells. Their children or those in close relationships know exactly what it is to set them off. They know what they have to do. They know the topics to avoid, all the actions, and they work hard to keep others from setting or pushing the buttons of the vulnerable narcissist as well. They are extremely jealous, and this could be of material objects, or it could be of the time of and attention that you show others. So if you were on the phone and they walked into the room, they would want your attention and believe that you should end the call no matter who is on the phone. You are not prioritizing them. When their vulnerability is threatened, they will critique people for feeling confident in social situations as a defense for their social discomfort. So who does she think she is? Why would you wear those shoes with that dress? Look at him showing off. You might feel the need to rescue them. And this can be described as the empath and their narcissist dynamic. But the vulnerable narcissist is playing the victim. They are actually more capable of doing a task than they portray they are. One area that they really do differ from the grandiose narcissist is that they actually are able to see their behaviour and they want to make an effort to change. They are more self-aware than the grandiose. But this isn't to be confused with the grandiose, who might take you to couples counselling when they want to get the counsellor to agree with them that this is all your fault. So the vulnerable narcissist is the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing. Forced humility, selfishness, they play the victim. They look like an empath or a codependent. They claim they need you. They love to play the game of triangulation. And what I do think is, I'm going to hazard a guess that where the grandiose's favourite game is gaslighting, it's the other way round with the vulnerable. Their favourite game is Triangulation and gaslighting is their second favourite. The vulnerable thrive on pretending to be something that they're not. They pretend to be codependent. They are hurting people. They get people to buy into their persona of being kind. They thrive on being able to deceive, as they can't get what they want when the world knows who they are. They get others to take responsibility for their happiness. Look at the pain you've caused me. It's not my fault, it's my anxiety. Is that what you really think of me? Guilting and gaslighting you. You know I'm not like that. That I really love you. They are delusional or in denial. They might say things like, oh, after all I've done for you, I've put you on a pedestal and this is how you treat me. They have nonsensical conversations with you. They might claim they don't understand a question and you have to break it down word by word to simplify it. And in the end, you're left frustrated and feeling that you've been played. They are emotional hoovers, sucking the joy out of those who are around them. Like the vampires taking your life force energy, you come away from them feeling drained. They have the same themes as a classical grandiose narcissist, with the arrogance and the sense of entitlement and the validation seeking. They know better than others and they criticize them. But where they are different is that they are the victim and they're harder to be around than the grandiose. Oversensitive and angry at the world, they will rage at you and they will become unkind in arguments. Very judgmental, and their sense of entitlement means that they feel they're owed something by the world, by life or their family. And you might think, oh my God, nobody gets this. They don't see what you see because they are so good at acting. And you might find yourself inwardly screaming, can't you see what's going on? The vulnerable type will blame shift. It wasn't them. They weren't there. It might be if they'd had a better childhood, their parents were more interested, or their parents were too involved, or the grandiose type where everything's really going well until they're challenged and then they become a bit neurotic and they're experiencing a vulnerability, bringing out emotions of shame, betrayal and abandonment. As I said at the beginning, over grandiose, they have the attitude of I'm better than you. Covert grandiose, they're the ones that daydream about being better. They can do no wrong. The overt vulnerable who blame shift, this wasn't their fault. And then you've got the covert vulnerable who internalize the same thoughts. If you've had any form of relationship with a vulnerable narcissist or someone who's higher up on the scale, you might be questioning if you have it right. Was this abusive? It felt like it. But then they were so nice. They needed you, or they were a victim of life. Look at the patterns of behaviour. Did you experience triangulation? Were you walking on eggshells? Did they suck the life out of you? Was this always your fault? Did they tell you that you were wrong and they were right? If your answer is yes, start looking at reprogramming your self-talk. Listen to the voices in your head or the way the sentences are constructed. Is this your voice? Play some of the situations and scenarios out as a third person. So if a friend approached you with this situation of what happened, what advice would you give them? Coming out of these relationships, you have more questions than answers, and it really is easy to slip into rumination. This is the process of continuously thinking the same thoughts, which tend to be sad or dark. It can be really dangerous for your mental health, and it prolongs your ability to think and process your emotions. Ground your body. Staying out of your head and in your body helps you process what happened and what is happening to you. Your mind was tricked into believing that the abuse was love. So in your body, you can actually see it as abuse. Breathing and counting, which is box breathing, also helps balance your stress hormones, and it helps calm down your nervous system. If you found this video helpful in some way, please like and share and subscribe to the channel. You'll be notified when I upload new content. I'll also put the link to my website so you can find out different ways of working with me, whether it's online courses or one-to-one. There'll be a link below. And I'll also put a link to my free resources to help you come out of these relationships and divorce emotionally so you can create the life that you were born to live. Sending you loads and loads of love.